When we think about the Middle Ages, a few things might come to mind: knights, castles, plague doctors, or maybe peasants tilling the fields. The one subject that doesn't often get the spotlight is hygiene. And yet, hygiene, or the lack of it, played a crucial role in everyday life, in health, in religion, in relationships, and even in the development of cities. Among the strangest and most telling aspects of medieval hygiene was the practice of shared bathing, a cultural norm that ranged from pragmatic to downright revolting by modern standards. Today, cleanliness is seen as a matter of personal responsibility, self-care, and social respect. We bathe alone, in clean tubs or showers, with scented soaps and hot running water. But in medieval times, the very idea of bathing, especially bathing privately, was rare and often reserved for the elite. For most people, bathing was a shared ritual, shaped by social status, family roles, religious beliefs, and simple economics. Let's start with one of the most common images from medieval bathing: the family tub. In rural households, where hot water was a luxury, the entire family would take turns using the same bath water. Heating water was labor-intensive. It had to be collected by hand, carried to the fire, boiled, and then poured into a wooden tub. So naturally, people economized. Typically, the father would bathe first. His status as the head of the household gave him the privilege of clean, hot water. Next came the older sons, then the younger children, and finally the women. The wife, the daughters, and possibly even servants, all using the same water. By the time the last person entered the tub, the water was cloudy, greasy, and probably smelled awful. There's even an old saying that may have originated from this practice: don't throw the baby out with the bath water, because by the time the infant was bathed, you might not even see them beneath the filth. And this wasn't just a peasant tradition. Even in wealthier homes, where multiple tubs might be available, water was still a resource to be conserved. Entire households, including guests, retainers, and visitors, might share bathing facilities. In urban areas, communal bathhouses were once a thriving industry. During the early medieval period, especially in places like the Holy Roman Empire and Italian city-states, bathhouses were often social centers. People would go not only to wash but also to talk, eat, relax, and even negotiate business deals. Bathhouses were co-ed in some regions, and many included massage services, steam rooms, and food vendors. But these places came under scrutiny, not for their sanitation, but for their morality. By the 13th and 14th centuries, the church became increasingly uncomfortable with the idea of mixed-gender bathing. Bathhouses gained a reputation for being dens of sin, where nudity and temptation went hand in hand. In many places, they were directly associated with prostitution. Laws were passed to regulate or shut down public bathhouses, especially during periods of plague, when they were seen as possible sources of infection, even though people didn't yet understand how disease actually spread. As bathhouses fell out of favor, public opinion shifted. Cleanliness was no longer viewed as a virtue. In fact, religious teachings started to link frequent bathing with vanity and sin. Saints were praised for avoiding washing altogether. Dirt became a symbol of spiritual purity, a rejection of earthly pleasures. In some monasteries, monks were expected to bathe no more than a few times per year, often only on Christmas and Easter. Personal filth became a mark of holy sacrifice. The average peasant, meanwhile, simply didn't have the time, the water, or the means to wash regularly. A stream or pond might offer some relief in the summer, but in winter, washing was limited to wiping down the face and hands. Soap, when it was available, was often made from animal fat and ashes, harsh, smelly, and scarce. Still, shared bathing didn't vanish completely. In some parts of Europe, particularly in Germany, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe, communal saunas and bathhouses continued to operate well into the Renaissance. These facilities often became key parts of local culture. The Finnish sauna, for instance, was used not only for bathing but also for childbirth, healing, and community meetings. By contrast, in England and France, public bathing became increasingly rare. The elite might enjoy private baths with rosewater or milk, but the general population grew accustomed to a life of minimal washing. The result was a society rife with lice, fleas, and skin infections. Body odor was not only tolerated, it was expected. People masked smells with perfumes and sachets, but few actually scrubbed themselves clean. It's worth noting that hygiene practices, or much more advanced in the Islamic world during the same period. Across the Middle East and North Africa, public baths known as hammams were widespread, beautifully constructed, and deeply tied to religious ritual. Cleanliness was considered essential in Islam, and washing before prayer was and still is mandatory. While medieval Europe shunned water and feared it, the Islamic world embraced it and built aqueducts, sewer systems, and public water fountains to ensure access. So how did Europe finally change its view on hygiene? Ironically, it wasn't concern for personal health that brought about better hygiene. It was the rise of science, urban planning, and modern plumbing in the 18th and 19th centuries. With the discovery of germs and bacteria, people finally understood the connection between filth and disease. Soap became mass-produced. Cities built sewer systems, private bathrooms were introduced in middle-class homes, and the very idea of sharing a bath slowly faded into the past. Today, the notion of stepping into a tap after 5 other people would horrify most of us. But in the medieval world, it was simply how life worked. Bathing was communal, practical, and shaped by the realities of scarcity, privacy, sanitation, and comfort. All luxuries of the modern age were, for most of history, out of reach. And perhaps that's what makes the story of medieval hygiene so fascinating. It's not just about filth or inconvenience. It's about how people adapted, how beliefs shaped behavior, and how every culture redefines cleanliness in its own way. So the next time you enjoy a hot, private shower with scented body wash and clean towels, remember that for most of human history, hygiene was a public act, a social puzzle, and often a murky affair.